As you can see here, we have created a rooms vector derived from the rooms class. Once we did that, we then created a string to read in from the file, and we used ifstream to read the file. To read in each line of the file, we got the get line, which read in each line, and then if the line was blank, then we'd push back into the new room. So to ignore the ID colon of each line, we created this first, which would find the space, and then the line that's substring, which would start from character 0 and end at first, wherever the space is found. For the rest of the string, we would then create second, which would also find the space, and then it would start from the second to the next space, as you see here, 1. Now, whenever ID equals type, when type equaled ID, so whenever the first thing was found, we would set the ID, and this ATOI would convert the string into an integer from here. So this is our string that we want to convert into an integer. So then with name, we would set the name just as normal, do that. And then the same thing as we did for ID, we took in each line and converted them into integers. For object, what we did, we stored the string into another string called object. We got the line straight after it, so that would be the description. We find the first space, same as above, and then we just stored it into this string here, where we then pushed it into a function in the room, which would push back into the rooms vector.
So when you run the game, this code here will execute. So you type in your choice. So in this case, we play or quit, or play or exit. That's stored in choice. So if your choice is play, you enter the if statement. So while your choice is not exit, it will play the game. So you take in the character's name. So we created a string for the name, and then that'll go use the player class to store the name. So then the game is on. So where the game starts with the first description, so we had to create a pointer, which is the room, which is of type room. So that starts at 0, as it's a vector. So while the exit is not equal to -1, you print out the room. So once the room's printed out, it'll give you the choice then which exit to take. So the user has to enter the route, and if it's valid, then it'll call the valid room class, and then it'll either say, if it's not valid, it'll say maybe check another route, but if it is valid, it'll print out that room that's next in line. And if the choice is exit from the start, it just exits the program.
So this is our rooms class header, and within it you can see that we have getters and setters for each input. So int ID, string name, description, exits, and objects. We both made exits and objects into vectors, and then we just created getters and setters. We did create a function called add that would add the description of the object and the object name into one vector. Yep. So then if we go to rooms, you can see that in the set object function, we're pushing back into the object. But to do that, we need to go to the add function that was created. As you can see here, we created this that would set the name as object and the description, and push both of those back into the objects vector from the header. For the getters and setters, we just returned each thing. Like for example, set exits, we just push the exits into the vector, and everything else we returned the variables. And if we were validating the rooms from the main, we took in the exits and we went through the exits vector and if the exit that exit equals the input of the user, then it would return true, else it would return false. And then we just created a print function to print out the rooms.
This is the player header, so this is where we got this is where we set the name and set the getters and setters for the name, which is seen here. So getters and setters. So I'm going to go on to the objects. So the objects is where we set the name, description, and get the name and get the description by returning them as well, which is also seen here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the virtual functions working, it just crashed the code. So we're going to run the program now and demonstrate it.